Every year, America faces nature's most violent storms. We see the satellite images. We watch the forecasts with bated breath. Hurricanes, tornadoes, supercells. But do you truly know the science behind the chaos? Do you understand the intricate dance of wind, water, and temperature? Splintered homes, flooded streets. Lives turned upside down in an instant. It's a story we think we know. Yet beneath the headlines lies a truth that can mean the difference between life and death. Imagine the sky turning a sickly shade of green-gray over the plains of Oklahoma. The air grows heavy, still, and unnervingly quiet. Then a siren begins its lonely wail, a sound that signals it's time to run for cover. Or picture the warm tropical breezes of the Florida Keys, suddenly turning violent, the palm trees bending until they snap. Under the force of winds you can't even stand up in. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie. These storms are the result of specific atmospheric ingredients coming together in a perfect, terrible recipe. Wind-water temperature. These are the moments that define communities and test the human spirit. I've stood in the rubble of towns hit by an EF5 tornado, where the only thing left standing was the foundation of a house. I've waded through floodwaters left by a Category 4 hurricane, seeing family heirlooms and precious memories floating away. Survivor stories are always the same in one key way: the sheer speed and overwhelming force of the event. 1 minute life is normal, the next, everything is gone. What if you had only minutes to react? What would you do? Understanding what is happening in the sky above you is your first and most critical line of defense. This isn't just about meteorology or abstract scientific principles. This is about your safety. It's about empowering you with the knowledge to understand the warnings and respect the power of the weather. We will journey into the heart of these storms, breaking down the science in a way that is simple, visual, and unforgettable. Anatomy of a hurricane. Brutal mechanics of a tornado. Towering power of a supercell thunderstorm. Prepare yourself, because we are about to pull back the curtain on America's wildest weather. You won't believe how these storms form, and learning how might just save your life. To understand the fury of a massive storm, you first need to appreciate the fundamental forces at play. Think of our atmosphere as a giant, restless ocean of air. It is constantly moving, driven by a single powerful engine: the sun. The sun heats the earth unevenly, creating vast differences in temperature and pressure across the globe. Warm air, which is lighter and less dense, wants to rise. Cold air, which is heavier and denser, wants to sink. This simple, constant battle between warm and cold air is the primary driver of all the weather we experience, from a gentle breeze to a catastrophic hurricane. There is perhaps no storm more visually awe-inspiring and terrifying from space than a hurricane. A perfectly formed hurricane is a breathtaking spiral of clouds spanning hundreds of miles with a calm, clear eye at its center. Hurricanes are born over the warm waters of the tropical oceans, massive heat engines that convert the warmth of the sea into ferocious winds and torrential rain. They are the largest and most powerful storms on Earth, capable of unleashing more energy in a single day than the entire world's electrical capacity. For a hurricane to form, the ocean water must be warm, at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit. To be classified as a hurricane, a storm must have sustained wind speeds of at least 74 miles per hour. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale categorizes them from 1 to 5 based on wind speed. A Category 1 storm can damage roofs and snap large tree branches. By the time you reach Category 5, with winds exceeding 157 miles per hour, the devastation is absolute. Katrina, Andrew, Maria. Each one represents a story of unimaginable destruction and a community changed forever. It begins its life as a gentle whisper, a humble cluster of thunderstorms over the warm tropical waters of the Atlantic Ocean, often near Africa. As warm, moist air rises from the ocean's surface, it leaves behind lower pressure. Higher pressure air rushes in. That air warms, moistens, and rises too. Earth's rotation makes the rising air begin to spin. This is the Coriolis effect. In the northern hemisphere, it spins counterclockwise, organizing thunderstorms into a circular pattern. That's when a tropical depression is born. At 39 miles per hour, the system becomes a tropical storm and gets a name. At 74 miles per hour, the storm becomes a hurricane. A calm eye often forms at the center. The eye has sinking air. The eye has clear skies. The eye has light winds. Storm surge is a massive bulge of ocean water pushed ashore by the hurricane's powerful winds. It is not a wave, but a literal rise in sea level that can be 20 feet high or more. That was the reality for residents of the Mississippi Gulf Coast during Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 stalled over Houston, Texas, dropping over 60 inches of rain in some areas, an amount that is difficult to even comprehend. The combination of wind, storm surge, and rain makes the hurricane a triple threat, a multifaceted disaster that leaves nowhere to hide. The failure was not just one of wind and water, but of engineering and preparation. Power can be out for weeks or even months. Clean drinking water becomes a luxury. Roads are blocked by fallen trees, downed power lines and debris, isolating communities and hampering rescue efforts. The economic cost is staggering, often running into the tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. But the human cost is, honestly, immeasurable. Yet, in the midst of this devastation, we also witness the incredible resilience of the human spirit. A woman in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria described sharing her small generator with 3 other families so they could all have a few hours of electricity. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers rescuing strangers, and volunteers from across the country pouring in to help rebuild. It is this spirit of community and shared humanity that allows us to face down the monster, pick up the pieces, and begin the long, arduous process of healing and rebuilding. If hurricanes are the ocean's lumbering monsters, then tornadoes are nature's assassins. They are sudden, precise, and unbelievably violent. A tornado is a narrow, violently rotating column of air that extends from the base of a thunderstorm to the ground. Their winds are the fastest on Earth, capable of exceeding 300 miles per hour. Where a hurricane's destruction is widespread, a tornado's path can be surgically precise, sometimes demolishing one house while leaving the one next to it completely untouched. America is the world's hotspot for tornadoes. The unique geography of the central United States creates a perfect storm alley, known as Tornado Alley, stretching from Texas to the Dakotas. The enhanced Fujita, or EF scale, measures a tornado's intensity based on the damage it causes. But at the top of the scale, an EF5 tornado is a monster of almost unimaginable power. It can strip bark off trees, obliterate well-built frame houses down to their foundations, and turn cars and trucks into unrecognizable pieces of twisted metal. In May 2011, an EF5 tornado hit Joplin, Missouri. The noise was indescribable. It wasn't a freight train. It was like the world was being torn apart, and you were inside the tear. The storm claimed 158 lives and left a scar nearly a mile wide across the city. A tornado's birth is a violent and complex process that begins high inside a special type of thunderstorm known as a supercell. This rotation begins not vertically, but horizontally. Imagine a long, invisible tube of air spinning like a log on its side, miles up in the atmosphere. This horizontal rotation is caused by wind shear, the change in wind speed and direction with altitude. For example, gentle southerly wind at the surface. For example, powerful westerly wind, the jet stream, roaring overhead. The powerful updraft of the developing supercell thunderstorm acts like a giant hand. It tilts this horizontal tube of spinning air into a vertical position. Now you have a vast, rotating column of air inside the thunderstorm, stretching from its base to its top, sometimes tens of thousands of feet high. On weather radar, meteorologists can see this rotation, often appearing as a hook echo, which is a classic sign that a tornado may be forming. Just like an ice skater who spins faster when she pulls her arms in, this stretching and narrowing makes the rotation accelerate dramatically. Often, a wall cloud, a distinct lowering of the cloud base, will form first. From this wall cloud, a funnel cloud may emerge, a visible cone of condensation. The final, terrifying moment is when this funnel cloud touches the ground. The spinning column of air, now connected to the Earth, begins its destructive journey, kicking up dirt and debris which makes the vortex fully visible. What would you do if you heard that sound? Tornadoes form with terrifying speed, sometimes giving residents only minutes of warning. That is why weather radios and smartphone alerts are so critical in tornado-prone areas. The key to survival is to have a plan and to act immediately. Get to the lowest level of your home, in an interior room with no windows, like a bathroom or closet. For many in Tornado Alley, a below-ground storm shelter is not a luxury, but a life-saving necessity. The unique geography of the central United States creates a perfect storm alley. Warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, cool, dry air from the Rocky Mountains, warm, dry air from the desert Southwest. This collision of air masses creates an incredibly unstable atmosphere, the perfect breeding ground for the severe thunderstorms that spawn tornadoes. While they can happen any time of year, the peak season is spring, when the temperature contrasts are at their most extreme. With the mesocyclone now spinning vertically, the stage is set for a tornado. While hurricanes and tornadoes often steal the headlines, they are both children of a larger and more fundamental phenomenon, the thunderstorm. The most powerful and dangerous type is the supercell. Think of a supercell as the mothership of severe weather. These are not your average summer afternoon storms. They are highly organized, self-sustaining giants that can persist for hours and travel for hundreds of miles. They are responsible for the vast majority of strong tornadoes, giant hail the size of grapefruits or softballs, and damaging straight-line winds. But in a supercell, strong wind shear tilts the storm, separating the updraft from the downdraft. This separation is the key to its longevity and power. The visual appearance of a supercell is one of nature's most spectacular and menacing sights. The top of the storm spreads out into a massive, flat anvil cloud that can cover an entire county. A particularly strong updraft can punch through the top of the atmosphere, creating a bubbling dome of clouds called an overshooting top, a clear signal of a very violent storm. Watching a supercell approach across the open plains is like watching a slow-motion alien invasion, both beautiful and utterly terrifying. Understanding the science behind these storms is not just an academic exercise, it is a tool for survival. When you hear a meteorologist talk about wind shear, you now know it's a key ingredient for rotation. When you see a hook echo on radar, you understand it could be the signature of a developing tornado. This knowledge transforms fear into respect. It lets you understand warnings, appreciate the timeline to act, and make life-saving decisions for yourself and your family. Knowledge replaces panic with a plan. The stories of survivors almost always contain a moment of decision. The family that went to the basement just minutes before their house was destroyed by a tornado. The coastal residents who evacuated days before a hurricane storm surge inundated their town. These are the people who are still here to tell their stories. They listened to the science, they respected the forecast, they acted. Your smartphone, a weather radio, and a family plan are your most important shields. Living in the United States means living with the possibility of severe weather. So now that you know the science behind the chaos, I ask you a final question. Which storm do you fear the most, and what will you do to be ready when it comes?